say that that's happening. All right, welcome. We have a lot of new folks with us today at Coincidence Cafe, and we're glad that you decided to come and join us and check it out. For our regulars, welcome back. This group has been meeting for just over 2 years together, but we've grown it very slowly. At first, it was just direct invitations to people that members of our board are known as the Coincidence Ambassadors. And the Coincidence Ambassadors are all very active in the field, studying coincidences, synchronicity, and serendipity in different forms. Some are researchers, some are authors, some are psychologists, shaman, you name it, all different sorts of fields and backgrounds. And so that group was starting to develop this Coincidence Cafe where people could come and we could explore new topics every month. So we now have co-hosts each time, and my name's Juliet Trail. I'm the managing director for the Coincidence Project. I'm the standing co-host and help with the Zoom and planning and keeping our topics something slightly new. There's lots and lots of things to discuss when it comes to coincidences. And I see questions already coming in the chat, and that's great. You can put those and we'll try to answer them as we can. My fellow co-hosts today are, let's see, if you're not on mute, I'm going to try to mute people, and then you can come off mute. So just now what I've done is I put everybody in the group on mute, and then you have to select mute yourself when you want to come off mute. And that's easiest because, of course, we're all in different spaces and we may have background noise when we get to a big group over 30 like this. It's best to stay on mute the whole time and then only come off mute if you're actually wanting to speak and add something. And my co-hosts today are Adele Aldridge and Christine Clawley, who are both regulars at the Coincidence Cafe. I'm going to add a spotlight to the two of them, which means that's easier for you to find them, however you have your view set up. And for now, I'll add a spotlight for me too. So you can have gallery view or other views by clicking on the word view at the top right of your screen if you want to play around with how you want to see all of us. And then we'll have some group discussion later in the session, and we won't have anybody on spotlight. We'll be able to see everybody. We do tend to interact as a full group here, so we encourage you to come off Zoom and interact when we get to those portions of our program today. And since we've now had a public launch event back a month ago, exactly 1 month ago, we're expanding who's invited to the cafe, and we have many new people discovering the project through our website. We had the first of our new speaker series events take place earlier in the week, and we'll have our next one in April. And we hope all of you will stay a part of this community. On our website, you can share your own coincidence experiences on our story forum, and you can create a new post for each story you might want to share with others and read other people's stories to see what their experiences may have been like. The vision of the Coincidence Project is to illuminate the invisible currents that connect and unify us. And this Coincidence Cafe helps to do that. By exploring different themes and meeting different people in breakouts and in the full group, we have an opportunity as Bernard Beitman, MD, we know him as Bernie, is the founder of this project, and he was the one speaking right at the top of the hour, just before we started the recording. So Bernie was mentioning that we often discover new coincidences amongst the members of the group, and that's part of the fun, the magic, the mystery of all of this, being together and seeing what new coincidences can emerge from our group and exploring what these words mean to each of us, what common or standard definitions we may agree upon, or we may disagree a little bit. So this is quite a new field. We're working to bring meaningful coincidences, synchronicity and serendipity more into the mainstream. We have found that these experiences are extremely common all over the world by people of all different age groups, all different backgrounds, all different belief systems. They may have a religion, they may not have a religion, they may have a different kind of philosophy, and yet they seem to have these experiences in common. So they're much more common than perhaps is accepted or understood or recognized yet by mainstream science or even society. But we are the ones who've been experiencing tons of this all of our lives, a lot of us. And we're trying to bring it more to the surface, make it more clear, explore it. With any new field, you begin to discover that there's a phenomenon, you name it, you haggle over which word to use for what, and you begin to kind of pin down some categories and types. Bernard Beitman has a really good book on this that just came out last year, Meaningful Coincidences, and it's helping to give names to the different major terms in the field and the types of major coincidences that occur. And if you're curious about that, Dr. Beitman is going to give our next speaker series talk. And on April the 8th at this time, for me, I'm in Virginia. This is 11 a.m. Eastern time for me. And his talk will take place at this time. So wherever you are in the world, whatever time zone you're in, his talk will have the same starting time. Some of our speaker series events will start at other times, especially to help some of our colleagues in Asia and Australia to be able to participate more easily with us. It's 3 a.m. in Australia right now, so not as easy for our colleagues over in Melbourne and Geelong and that sort of thing to be with us. So Bernie's talk will be April 8th at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and he'll be talking about cultivating meaningful coincidences, and he'll define the 4 major types of coincidences that commonly occur. And there'll be chances for Q&A and interacting with Bernie to explore more about this. So if that's something that you're really interested in, please do sign up through our website, and I'll drop in the chat in a minute when I'm not talking. I will go over and grab our registration link. And if you're not signed up for that speaker series event, I do encourage you to come. And then just keep coming back to Coincidence Cafe, because every time we'll discover something new. And I'm about to turn it over to our first co-host of the day, Christine, but I want to do just a little quick check-in with everybody. And we're not going to do a verbal check-in this time. I think we'll go to our speakers and to our breakouts, and then we'll all be able to come off mute and speak together in the full group later in the session today. But instead, I want you to think of any coincidence experience you've had, an occurrence of synchronicity, serendipity, or meaningful coincidence, whatever those terms mean to you right now. And then just put in the chat, how did the coincidence experience that you're thinking about right now, just pick one, how did it make you feel? What emotions or feelings were present for you when you had that coincidence experience? So I see fun, wonder, awe, delight, joy, love, curiosity, a little bit of fear mixed with awe, shock, comfort, empowerment, could sense a place in the universe, safe, watched over and seen, relief. Someone else got shocked. Yeah, coincidences can be trickster. Coincidences can sometimes be quite tricky, quite shocking. Aware of something bigger than ourselves, indeed. And a sense of awe. And I know some people feel from curiosity, we get that sense of what the heck is going on here. Who did that? Who's watching? Who saw that? How'd that happen? Yep, amused. Many hilarious things. Again, there's a real playful sense, I think, with coincidences a lot of the time. Affirmation. It felt like a cosmic hug. Yeah, that's a really nice one. Humor, and right now in the Eastern time zone, it's 11:11. We love seriality. We love repeated themes. 1111 is an excellent time for us to kind of launch into our topic for today. Yeah, some people make a wish when they see the repeated numbers. And in the US, 1111 is the only time we see 4 of the same number. If you're using military time or time elsewhere in the In the world, they get 2222 as well, but we don't have that one typically in the US. So it kind of makes 1111 the most special. And I see one hand up, Vicki, but do you have a question before we go up? No. Yeah, you can also click on reactions and then click on lower hand. You can raise hand and lower hand on reactions in Zoom. All right, Christine, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, Vicki, did you have something to say?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I am so grateful for this opportunity. Juliet, you do an amazing job facilitating these meetings, and I just want to say how much I appreciate this space and the opportunity to share a little bit of my story. So my specialty is really dreams, and that's where a lot of information comes to me. And I've been keeping dream journals, let's see, for about 27 years. But the most intense, I use the word precognitive dream, I think that I had, happened during a very difficult time in my life. And I just want to let folks know there is a trigger warning. So if it gets too intense here, you could step away, or, I encourage you to just take a breath. But I'm going to talk about a period in my life where I just graduated from college, was struggling with depression, going through very confusing, difficult time. And for about 6 months, I was having these reoccurring dreams. Now, when you have a reoccurring dream, especially a reoccurring nightmare, that, in my opinion, is the subconscious screaming for your attention. And so for, again, about 6 months on and off, I had these dreams that I was being strangled in my sleep by this woman who was very, very angry. And it felt so real. I would wake up and it felt like my throat was constricted. And as this went on and on, I just couldn't understand, why this was happening. But I was paying attention, to the dreams. And there's another dream that I want to add on as I talk about this, because dreams sometimes can be symbolic. They can be us processing fears at night, but I do absolutely think that dreams can also be warning dreams. And so I was having this dream about experiencing strangulation. And then I also had a couple dreams where there was something in my throat that I was trying to remove, kind of in this astral realm. So fast forward, 6 months have gone by, and I think I just have the flu. My friends had strep, so I go to get tested for that, comes back negative, and then my illness just continues to get worse and worse and worse, until I have to go back to the hospital. At the point I go back to the hospital, I'm cutting out some details here. My lung has collapsed. I've gone into septic shock, and my parents rushed me to the hospital, and I have the flesh-eating bacteria, which is very serious, necrotizing fasciitis. And it began from a small cyst behind my vocal cords, just like in the dream. And it spread very quickly into my chest, into my abdomen. And I was in a medically induced coma for about 1 month. During this time, I had many dreams that mirrored what was happening to me in my waking life, these multiple operations and the pain associated with that. However, there was one dream where it was as if I lived out an entire lifetime. And I won't go into too much detail about that here, but it was a very profound dream about, the oppression of women, about, the oppression economically of a lot of different peoples on this planet. And the dream was so real that I feel that dream has really impacted the work that I do. And I'm a counselor now, so it's kind of, led me on this path of working with a variety of different people. And so, this experience was, when I woke from that coma, very, very confusing, but has impacted me in such a deep way, in such a spiritual way. So even though that's, maybe a traumatic or kind of negative experience, how many people might view it, for me, I do think these dreams were preparing me on a physical, emotional, and spiritual level to go through this very challenging experience, but an experience that has been a catalyst for my spiritual growth. So as we go into the breakout groups, I would encourage you to think about, because we often minimize these experiences unless they're a very big experience like that. Have you had precognitive dreams, premonitions, visions, signs, synchronicities that have foreshadowed what is to come? So it doesn't have to just be a precognitive dream. It can be an inner knowing. And I encourage you to think about, experiences either you have had or maybe stories you've heard from loved ones. So I'll end with that. And thank you for letting me share my story.
Well, and in just a moment, I'll be opening some breakout rooms. So we have a minute if people have any questions or to make a few comments while it gives me a second to prepare our breakout spaces. What we do in the breakout rooms is we pause our recording. Anything that you share in a breakout is private. Only your partners in the breakout will ever hear it. It's not recorded or overheard in any way. You're welcome to keep whatever private you wish to keep private and only share what you're comfortable sharing with the partners in your room. And then when we come back into the full group, there'll be a chance later to talk a little bit about maybe what arose in the breakout room or what you noticed, particularly if there's a new coincidence that arises between perhaps what you share or observe and another member of your group. And Adele, our other co-host, will also be taking us forward today with speaking a little bit. So we might have a couple minutes to debrief this breakout, and then we'll turn it over to Adele to take us deeper into our topic for today. And we'll have time for a second breakout with new partners later in the session. In this breakout, we have plenty of time. And so we'll give you about 13 minutes in the breakout, and then you'll get an additional 2 minutes to wrap up. There's going to be 3 or 4 people in the breakout. I guess I'll put 12 minutes, and then you'll have 2 minutes to wrap up at the end. And any questions right now before we shift to the breakouts? Maybe Christine, can you also type the topic for the breakouts in the chat for them so that they clarify that which question we're going to explore? And one thing that I do with the breakout sessions is I try to make sure someone that's been a cafe regular for a while is in each room. And that helps in case you're like, I don't really get what we're doing here. This is strange. That's totally fine. But you should have someone in your room that's a little more used to this and can help maybe give a little comment or clarification if something doesn't seem particularly clear. And so I'm just going through now to refine that for a moment and make sure that all the rooms have someone that's likely to kind of understand what's going on with us here today. Some of the rooms will have 4 people, but we have enough time. So I hope everybody will get a chance to speak and interact.
I have a question. Did you say it was open to questions?
Yes, please. Yes, please go ahead and ask.
On the precognitive experiences, Christine, do they always play out the way that you cognate them, or sometimes just like the theme of it may play out, but is it always a foreshadowing?
I would say it can be both. For instance, I've had dreams, and I encourage everyone here to keep a dream journal, because when you go back and look, you'll be astounded by how many dreams end up unfolding with incredible precision and detail. However, something precognitive can also come as a synchronicity, a sign, an inner knowing, something not as specific, but the theme of it does carry through. So I encourage you to, yeah, as you go into your breakout rooms, even widen the scope of what you think about as precognitive. Doesn't have to be something really specific. You know, in my case, it was more symbolic, that constriction around my throat, you know, experiencing that illness. That's how my mind interpreted what was happening to me physically. So again, yeah, just paying attention to how your subconscious communicates to you, what symbols, signs, themes you notice. I don't know if that answers your question, but great question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open the rooms now. You'll get an invitation to join. Just click on the blue button to join, and we'll see you back here in about 14 minutes.
A button appeared and I thought I was doing something constructive, and then I evaporated.
Well, welcome back from the breakout. I'm going to mute everybody. And so now you would need to select mute to come back off and speak. Although we're going to probably go to our second co-host of the day to keep advancing our topic. Coming back from the breakouts, yeah, we get the little 2-minute countdown that we're at the end. If you click on the bright blue button, it leaves you leave the room immediately. So if you came back even sooner than you meant to, you clicked on that bright blue button. If you want to move it off your colleagues' faces, you have to click on sort of the white or gray space, not the bright blue space. Bright blue is a button that says leave and rejoin room, main room. So that happens sometimes. Although we've had people that have done that and come back to the main room early, and they met someone else who did the same thing, and it turned out that they were just the right people to be speaking to each other. So maybe if it does happen, it's exactly what needs to happen. So I am going to invite our other co-host today, Adele Aldridge, to come up with me and tell us a little bit about your perspective today.
I'm just seeing myself on my big screen. Is that what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yes.
Okay, well, I was going to tell a story about a dream that made me convinced that the psyche lives outside of time, because I keep a journal of my dreams, and I don't think if you don't keep a journal of what you're dreaming, if it happened, in my experience, most of them were several years ahead of time. And the dream that I had, that I discovered way later after, because I was doing the research, was that I dreamed that I was in a house that looked like Sausalito, and I was overlooking the bay, and that the man next door owned the house and let me use the beach. And it was, you know, a very specific spot. And I didn't think much of the dream at the time. I thought it was very symbolic, maybe, as Freud would say, a wish. And I completely forgot that I ever dreamed that. And I had that, it was in Sausalito where the dream took place. And I was living in Connecticut with no intentions whatsoever of moving at all. I was involved in a very serious relationship after a divorce, which broke up, and I moved to California. And when I found the dream, that's exactly where I was living, in that exact spot overlooking the water in Sausalito. The man next door did own the place, and he owned the house next door. And that was I discovered that when I was doing research on my dreams, and it made me change my view of dreams. And I went back and researched and found quite a few other ones where I was dreaming before it happened, which I thought was quite amazing, and it kind of changed my view entirely of how to view a dream. Sometimes they're symbolic, but it drives me crazy when someone says, "Oh, that was just a dream." I don't think anything's more important than what we dream. But I guess that's enough for me at the moment.
And I'm working on creating another round of breakouts. Why don't you tell the group what you think they could talk about in this next round of breakouts, Adele?
Well, since we're discussing dreams and precognition, talking about their own dreams or experience would be good, be interesting.
Yeah, and I like the notion that you said about our psyche living outside of time. Can you say a few more words on that as well?
Well, the fact that I dreamed where I was living in an exact spot, everything about it was the same, is that, how did I know that? And so I traveled. In other words, now the physicists are talking about, I just recently saw an article the other day in the news about the physicist is saying the future creates the present. And this is in this whole, physics language of time.
Yeah, so as we go back into breakouts, just keep going with that. What is the nature of time? Does it exist or not exist? And dreams and precognition, and how do you hold on to what you have personally? Adele mentioned that she does journaling. Who else here is working on journaling to stay grounded and keep record of this and reflect on what has come to you and what might recur later? And we'll have about 10 minutes, and then we'll get a 2-minute additional countdown after the 10 minutes.
I just want to say, I think it's essential if you want to know about if your dream is precognitive to write it down, write your dreams down, because it can happen way later. Mine was always 2.5 years later. The big ones, they happen when this life-changing events.
All right, we'll see you after the next breakout. Just keep going with time, psyche, mind, dreams, and synchronicity, meaningful coincidence, whatever's occurring to you right now with your partners.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back. And if you joined us since the beginning, this is the Coincidence Cafe hosted by the Coincidence Project. And these cafes have been taking place once a month for the past 2 years. We have a lot of new people on the call today. And if you're new and you haven't been here before, maybe give us a wave. I'm gonna say hi to some of the new folks. So there's a few of you like sheepishly like, yeah, I have, but everybody gets to be new sometimes. So today gets to be your day for a few of you. And then we have others that have been here many times, and we thank our returning regular cafe folks. And the recording doesn't follow you into the breakout room. So that was all private, just in case you missed my announcement about that at the beginning. And we will be posting the recording from today's session on the website now. And it'll be something that other people might view later. So there are two ways to stay very private and not be recorded. You can keep your camera off and you can stay on mute. It won't show anybody whose camera is off. And it doesn't show everybody all at once because we have more than 20 people, 25 people on the call. So it'll show the person who's speaking. And if you want, you can just keep your comments within the breakout rooms, stays fully private. And I don't know how many people will watch this later, but we are growing and we do have people that are registering but not able to make it at this time, that are asking for the access to see these topics and these important conversations. We do want to take this into society and make it more mainstream, more well understood, more seen, discussed, accepted. So that's part of the reason for shifting. The Coincidence Cafes before now have not been posted as regular videos, but they will be at this point. So now our floor is open, actually, for anybody who had something interesting that they might like to share. And you're welcome to use the reactions function in Zoom to raise your hand, or you can kind of try to raise your hand so that we can see you, but it's hard to see everybody all at once. So having your camera on and the raise hand function or trying to raise your hand in your room are two ways for us to know if you'd like to add a comment. I will maybe invite Christine, you want to kick us off, coming back from breakouts, about how your rooms were or what you're thinking now?
Yeah, we had some very interesting discussions about not necessarily dreams, but synchronicities, coincidences, and how we kind of form a broader theory of the world, related to time, related to God or creator, meaning. And this, I think one conclusion or discussion that really came up is this tension between, the mundane, just kind of going through our day-to-day life, maybe in a robotic way, and then these experiences that just really catch our attention and create this sense of magic and make us feel like we are truly participating with the world around us and others. There's also a feeling of, kind of specialness, like the universe is opening up and talking to you. So we had a wonderful discussion. I don't know, if anyone else wants to jump in and share. It doesn't have to be just about dreams. One aspect of synchronicity and coincidences is that it can make waking life appear like a dream. So there can be symbolic meaning or literal meaning in these experiences we have. So.
Thank you. Who wants to join us next? Let's hear from somebody else a little bit about your recent breakout group. Kirby.
Kirby has his hand.
Yeah, Kirby, go ahead and come off mute. Join us up here.
All right, cool. Bernie. Is Bernie there?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead and ask it.
Yeah. Why does synchronicity stop when you want to force it to happen? Why does it stop? It stops all the time when you want to force it. Why?
Well, being as I'm the expert, Kirby, and you're asking me, I'd like to put that question out to everybody else, because there are many different answers to that, and I'll be talking about in our next event, April 8th, how to how to cultivate meaningful coincidences. So you're asking about the mirror image of that. And I haven't really tried to address that. So I wonder what other people think about what happens when you try too hard to make coincidences happen and they stop.
I
I
saw
haven't seen it in 2 weeks.
we have Jess raised her hand, I think, to help respond to this, and then Sue, and then Tara. So let's let each person make a comment, Kirby, and we'll see if we can keep this thought going. Jess, then Sue, then Tara. So Jess, you want to come off mute?
I'm off mute. I think Greta had an answer to it as well. So my theory is this, Kirby, which is that when you want something, what you're doing is emphasizing the distance between you and the thing that you lack. And so by emphasizing the wanting piece, what you're doing is kind of deepening the chasm. So I would suggest starting to think about it in some other kind of way without using the concept of want. So that's me, I'm done.
All right, Sue, what were you thinking? And then Tara, and then Julian, if you'd like to add something. So Sue next.
Hi, thanks. Kirby, I think that you're almost approaching like a sympathetic magic, which is what you want, where you're looking for to make the outlines of what you want. You want to say, I'm thinking now, and I want this answer, and I want it to be written to say clearly, yes, no, or whatever you're looking for. And what you need to do is stop trying to force it to come at that moment, and just be aware and just keep looking around. You've asked your question, and now you want to be very open so you can find the answer come to you, maybe in an unexpected way. So that's my recommendation.
Thanks, Sue. Tara.
Yeah, so I think we cannot force anything because it puts us in a different space, right? When you're receiving synchronicities, you're in a very open, heart-centered space. And when we try to will our way through it, I think we get more into the head. And to echo also on what Sue said, I think as you relax, like if you trust the process, I put out my request, I want this information, and then expect it to show up and keep looking for it somewhere. And that's how I manage it.
But I have a question. Okay, now we have a war, which is happening right now with Russia and Ukraine. So if we see signs, what can we do about this war?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. You know, can we turn our attention as people that seem plugged in or connected in some great ways to reality? Can we help more peace to arise? Can we help to resolve conflicts and difficulties? And, you know, I don't think that there's an easy accepted answer, even in this group. And we're probably the group who's had a lot of people that have thought this question you're asking, Kirby. I think it's a beautiful question. I'm certainly asking that question myself in my life right now. What can we do? How do we help? And, you know, for myself, I stay in that place of like, I don't know and I can't force it. The reason that there's warfare is very, very complicated. And there are many, many other people who have a will, who are plugged into things. You're one person extending your yearning, your love, your heart, your mind, your will towards a longing for peace, a longing for the cessation of this conflict. But there are other people that are having an equal and opposite yearning. They're profiting from the war, or they agree with the reasons for it. They think it's a fight that has to continue to happen, or they're manufacturing it. So there are many forces swirling. Some are for, some are against. How do we turn the tide towards peace? I don't know. It's a very, very great question, but I don't have a simple answer, but I do think there might be some of why you don't see it happening just because you're longing for it so much is because there's other people longing for other things to happen. And even in this sort of, you know, swirl of all that is, there's not one simple, you know, will or group unified force sort of leading in only one direction. Perhaps if enough people are praying for peace, leaning into synchronicity for peace, however we want to describe that, maybe it could begin to come. I see a few more people with hands raised. So we got Christine and then Annie and then Rita to add to this conversation.
Thank you. Well, I was going to speak to the first point about why, how we maybe block these experiences of receiving synchronicity or these magical moments. And I do think in so many areas of life, it's that like surrender and letting go of, that intention or that desire that I think does help us receive, whatever it is that we're looking for or message. And then the other comment about war, I would really, Carl Jung has been just life-changing for me. And he has, I wish I had the quote on hand, an amazing quote about, the psyche being responsible for this split, this division between our persona, our shadow, our self and other. And I do think if we can look at our own darkness, how we contribute to conflict, violence, war in different ways, if we can integrate and accept those parts of ourselves that we reject, it can help in subtle ways, to change this dynamic, because war is a product of man's psyche. And I don't know, there's a great book called The Earth Has a Soul that I recommend, and that addresses some of these problems.
Well, perhaps I could talk about what I think about in the Coincidence Project. And one way that I'm suggesting meaningful coincidences can help bring not only resolution to major political conflicts, but also to the problem that we're facing as humanity is gradually boiling itself in its own planet, like the frogs slowly getting boiled, and maybe we'll hop out and maybe we won't. So the idea is that the meaningful coincidences can help us understand more clearly how it is that we are interconnected with each other. They just show us the invisible currents that demonstrate how united we are, but we just have the idea we're all one, but it's how we're all one is part of the fun and the questions. And meaningful coincidences can show us how some of these connections operate. Well, what's the reason for doing that? Well, I think I visualize a collective human organism, that we all are part of the same thing, like a big mushroom growing in a forest someplace that's all connected. We are one entity, or potentially one entity. And coincidence can show us somehow how we are connected, but there's a in-between problem. As we can see our connections, we gotta figure out how to get along with each other. It's a problem. We don't get along with each other, and some therapists like Christine are nodding a little bit like with that, and others know that too, is that we have to then become able to relate to each other. And guess what? We don't relate to each other in quite the same way. We each have different personality types. So we have to find what I call energy signatures. Other people have different names for them, but I have a certain resonant pattern. You have a certain resonant pattern, which resonates at different octaves with other people's resonance capabilities. So how do we find people that can resonate together and form a kind of organ within the collective human organism, that then that organ connects with the other organs in the collective human organism, that becomes the capacity for us to begin to imagine together. Imagination is so important, and social media steals our imagination from us, to be able to imagine together a future that we can somehow bring into existence together, while also recognizing our own individuality as we do that as cells in this collective human organism.
Thanks, Bernie. And we had Annie and Julian, maybe, that had both at some point indicated they wanted to chat. Would either of you like to jump in now?
Yes,
Well, one of the things.
Okay,
that
wait,
Annie
let's
here-
let Julian go. He was in the queue a while
Oh,
now.
okay.
Okay, Julian, and then Annie, and then Denise.
yeah, so very briefly, Kirby has two questions actually, so maybe separate them. The first was, why is it that when you try to force synchronicity, it runs away from you? We have palpable direct experience through work I did with biofeedback, particularly brainwave biofeedback, where the interesting mission was to try to invite hypnagogic images from your unconscious. And we found almost instantly, the first task is how to get the machine to register the theta brainwave in a say oboe-like sound. And the more you try to do it, the less the machine cooperated. So the minute you let go, all of a sudden you get boom, boom, and then you get cocky. And you say, I figured this out, and then it runs away from you. And so in the simplest baby exercise, you have a profound example. And then the farmer who keeps digging up the plant kills the plant. So Kirby, that's the first answer. It seems it's in the nature of things. Elmer Green used to emphasize that allowing is the most sophisticated form of control. He used a terrible word like coincidence control. I never agreed with that. But allowing allows the Tao, as it were, to manifest. Your second question that I thought was really interesting is, okay, well, how do we, and Bernie's point as well, how do we work with these powers of meaningful coincidence, synchronicity? And there's something really quite extraordinary about one person has a shift. That one person changed the history of Gandhi, a history of India, person who killed Gandhi. Well, what about for good? I think we all share a wish to try to have a more peaceful, caring, loving planet. And so I think just the simple practice of what your question implies begins a process. And we have an ecology here in this group and many other groups that can amplify what Bernie's calling these energy fields. I emphasize the role of the heart as an energy field, particularly constellating love, from which we move to what I call evolutionary values, but that's a perhaps separate subject. But anyway, thank you very much. This is once again, I think, to your credit, a very, very interesting and valuable meeting.
Thank you, Julian. I think we had Annie, then Denise, then John. Annie, did you still want to add?
Yes, I think in metaphors quite a bit. And one of the things between my psyche and probably who I'm talking right now is, I see my human part that's with time is the horse, and that my psyche is more the rider. And as a horse, I need to be more sensitive. And I know that my psyche is not trying to break me. So I see them working together. That I learned to fly when I was 16. And I remember I got to a point where the airplane and I were one. And maybe I see that metaphor for us, like with a horse and a rider, how to kind of relax and kind of where the rider and the horse kind of become one.
Thank you, Annie. Denise.
She's muted. She's talking, but you need to unmute her.
Yeah, make sure you come off mute, Denise. We haven't heard you yet.
When I read that the Hindus believe that reality is an illusion, is Maya, and that we create our own reality, it made me wonder how we do that. And, we're just one person, and there are other wills that work against ours. And it made me wonder, is reality a democracy? You know, the image I had is, you know, if there are 50 merchants in town who want it to be a sunny day so they can have a sidewalk sale, and there are 51 farmers outside of town who want it to rain for their crops, you know, does that mean it's going to rain? Or is it people whose vibrations are higher who have more power? I think that we have to remember that we're just one person, and that we do need to all be on the same wavelength to have more power. And I just lost my train of thought.
Let me help you a little bit, because you're so right. We tend to get so self-involved with what our own thing is. We forget that there's somebody else. Even when there are two people involved with a meaningful coincidence, we tend to look at our own. It's worth asking the other person, what was your experience of this coincidence? Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Never mind.
Okay. Well, you made an excellent point that needs to be made often. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that was a nice explanation of what I was trying to say also about warfare, the question of why isn't there peace if some of us are longing for peace? But unfortunately, there are others that are longing for the conflict that's happening to continue, because for whatever reasons it benefits them or they're supporting it. So that we have to build coalitions and alliances. And I think Julian was pointing to this when he was talking about the energy field of our hearts. And Bernie was talking about this in forming resonances, pockets of resonance where we resonate with one another, with shared longing. And part of that longing brings us together today for Coincidence Cafe. And I know we have a few people that joined us about 20 minutes ago. In the United States, our time still flip-flops twice a year. And I think this threw off many people that are in other countries. So apologies on behalf of America for flip-flopping the time. Just so you know, we Yanks hate it and we wish they would stop doing it. And I think maybe they're going to stop soon. I think they're going to quit flip-flopping our time, but it does make it quite confusing for all of our global friends, many of whom are in countries where the time has not just changed by an hour. But for us now, we're about an hour and 20 minutes into our hour and 30-minute program. So if the time difference was a little bit different for you than what you anticipated, please make note of it for our future events. And now we've got John and then Sarah. And after that, I might invite Arlene and then Christine again, our host today, to kind of come in here as we're about to bring our program for the day in for a landing. But we'll do John, Sarah, then Adele, then Christine. John.
Well, I think that one of our problems has been that we incredibly anthropomorphized all of this. If 40 million people wanted to have war and 40 million people want to have peace, how about the rest of the entire universe? That we seem to be thinking that it is a democracy, and it's not. We're just all of us are just a small part of a much larger area that works within that we're massing all these different phenomena into as if everything were synchronicity, when we're looking at all kinds of different phenomena that maybe aren't synchronicity at all, PK, the distance communication, and so on. And we tend to look at ourselves as being the center of it, and why isn't it going our way? And to answer Jean Kirby really quickly, is one of your problems of not getting it open to you when you're really trying hard. Is because they're two different techniques. If you want to go back to the likes, when you're trying to make it happen, you're doing something that was really in the area of traditional magic. If you want to find out how to do that well, go to Aleister Crowley, who's pretty good at it, or even Annie Besant, who on the other side is pretty good at it. But and you can get a lot done that way, but you have to really work at it hard. But it's a lot easier to just let it happen to you, and let it happen to you from areas that aren't necessarily people. We're not the fact that we're communicating with the dead or other people, with our futures and so on that happen to involve other people. That's all part of the matrix of the rest of the world in which we live. And I think what's important about trying to get to synchronicity and seriality in particular, my pet direction for it, or inclusive word for it, is that it's part of a larger picture, which is not just human beings, it's the whole rest of the structure of how the world is put together mathematically, and that happens to be in a serial form, and we keep seeing it and we keep interpreting it as if it was us that were causing it, and we were really the phenomena, and we're not. We're just part of it. So let it come to you. Well, another reason to let it come to you.
Excellent, John.
Thanks.
Thank you. You got Sarah, and then Adele, then Christine.
So I've just sent a couple of pictures to the chat. I put my hand up when the lady said about us, about the horse and the rider becoming one. So yesterday, my friend was going to the horse racing at the pub. So I'd said, please, will you put a bet on number 7, because my name's Sarah Fevan. So I've sent a photograph of the betting slip, and the horse that was number 7 was called Dandy Dan. And during our breakout, I was telling the group about how I'd been writing about coincidences all week, and I'd been thinking about somebody that I used to go to boarding school with in 1984. And yesterday, she added me as a friend on Facebook. And then when I arrived here today, Adele was speaking, and I couldn't take my eyes off that lamp. And it kept making me think of a peacock, and my friend was called Heidi Peacock at school. And we went to the Logos school, which is logos and signs, how all of that fits in. But her name has changed now, and actually all her friends call her Dan. So the horse that I bet on was Dandy Dan, and then all of that happened, and she turned up last night, and that was my thing. And horses and riders, yeah. It's cool. I love it. And I've also sent a picture of a map that I coloured in, because I'd heard that we leave a light trail behind us. So I coloured in the streets that my sister and I used to play on, and where we walked around to Grandma and Granddad's house and walking down to school. And as far as I'm concerned, we walked Darth Vader's helmet, if you have a look at that.
Yeah,
Moved away, and then we moved away from that address on May the 4th, 1980. So there is definitely a lot going on that we can't see until we really, really start to look at it.
Yep.
Great. I want to invite Adele to come back up and let us know what you're thinking as one of our creators of our conversation today.
Well, I had something to say in response to Bernie when he was talking about imagination, which using imagination, which reminded me of Einstein. Didn't Einstein say imagination was more important than knowledge?
Yes.
And as an artist, I have to use imagination all the time, and I've had experiences where that's a whole other subject of creating something that then happens, or, and writers do that too all the time. So maybe we all have to use our imaginations and put that out there, what we imagine. I mean, as John Lennon says too, imagine.
Yes.
So that's all I have to say at the moment.
Christine, how about you?
Yes. Well, I'm a therapist. My journey has led me on that path. And I just see how much of our individual and collective problems can really derive from a lack of meaning. There's this feeling of meaninglessness in people's lives, of my actions don't matter. I don't make a difference. I'm isolated. There's a feeling of hopelessness. And I'm just in the midst of reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And I'm also a Nietzschean and Jungian. So I can't emphasize enough how powerful it can be to really begin to engage, even in your day-to-day life, with this approach of looking for meaning. And I know, yes, we can go overboard and become obsessive and get tunnel vision, but I mean, we are meaning-making creatures, and I just can't emphasize how empowering it can be to take this stance of, you know, really dipping into the present fully and opening up to the world, surrendering to whatever, you know, information is entering into your, you know, psyche, and using that, you know, in an empowered way. We're not just inactive recipients of information. We can take an active role in you know, having a ripple effect, you know, in our own lives and those around us. So I also think of Groundhog Day. You know, that's such a wonderful movie, and you know, there's really two different ways to engage in life. You know, one is just going through the motions without, you know, a sense of caring or passion, and the other is, you know, taking a much more impassioned stance. So I'll just leave you with that.
Thank you. And we'll get back to Denise in just a moment, but we're about to reach the hour-and-a-half point. I just added in the chat, the Coincidence Project is a nonprofit organization, but it does take money to run things and to keep them free for others. So the way that we balance that out is by accepting donations. So there is a link if it's something that's possible and feasible that you might like to do. We are happy to accept donations of any amount, large or small. And we'll just start to put that out regularly to our community. There's no pressure in any particular event to make a donation. That's just how we are operating, is on a donation basis. And I do want to add that both of our co-hosts today have a lot of, in their own work, of merit on the topics that we're hovering around. Christine is working on a film on synchronicity and looking a lot at the nature of time. I imagine you've had some food for thought arising from today's conversation in the midst of your filmmaking and the challenges of having now too much footage and needing just enough time to edit it and get it out into the world. So may you have the time you need somehow come to you for the very meticulous editing process so your film can get to the world and impact more people. And Adele is a brilliant artist who has illustrated 4 full volumes of the I Ching with gorgeous, exquisite, metaphor-laden art. Yeah, I mean, your work is so beautiful. And when Adele was a co-host before, she did a little bit of an I Ching reading for us on the cafe itself. I think you were collaborating with Mary Kay Landon, who's on the call with us or has been on the call with us at points today. I can't see everybody all at once, so I'm not sure if she's still here this moment or not, but Adele and Mary Kay are both I Ching aficionados. They're both professional work based on it.
Can I say one thing about that?
Of course.
I consult I Ching every morning to see advice for the day. And I got number 8, union changing to friendship in the open. Perfect. Mary Kay would understand what that meant.
Yeah.
It was so perfect that it always blows me away about the I Ching. Anyway.
So we love that. So divination and metaphor and the dream time and the symbolic nature of reality, the matrix, these are all things we've kind of touched upon lightly today. I see some people want to speak again, so do Denise and Sarah, but just give me a moment. We just reached 12:30, so if Eastern time, it's 12:30 where I am in Virginia, and we want to thank everybody for being here. We will stay on a few minutes past this end of the program, but if anybody needs to go, we do understand, and we thank you for your time. I had one person send me a comment, just a personal chat to say, how can we keep the conversations going? Is there a way to reach out to one another in between cafes? Right now, we don't have an ongoing chat forum where you might be typing and that sort of thing. I would encourage you to come back to more of our events if you're interested. When you're in breakout rooms, you can always share your email and contact information with one another through the chat. The chat during your breakout rooms is only visible to your partners at that time. It's not visible to the full group. And we'll continue to explore ways to stay connected. Our website is thecoincidenceproject.net, all spelled out, thecoincidenceproject.net. And you can post your own coincidence experiences in our story forum. That's another way to have some sort of record of interacting with us, interacting with one another, to read one another's experiences. I do hope you'll all start to post to the story forum. Eventually, this could be something like a subreddit. It could become a Meaningful Coincidences forum on Reddit. If somebody wanted to manage a subreddit forum, there's some work in that. We do not have the capacity right now to do that from the project. We're trying to do it through our website for the time being, but there will be ways to continue interacting, and the more regularly you'll come to events, the more you'll get to know one another and hear our conversations. And then there was some important questions posed by Uncanny Coincidence, whoever you might be, an anonymous attendee known only as the moniker Uncanny Coincidence. Is it this? Is it that? Is it the other? Are we saying this? Is it this perspective? We're not in the habit of making claims or trying to converge upon any one particular word or theory or perspective. This is much more about diversity and multiplicity, and just bringing to the surface places we can share how we see it, how whatever wisdom and questions and curiosities and experiences we've all cultivated, to see how they might interact, how they might converge, and to explore what's possible rather than determining only one particular perspective or format or even term for it. There's really a lot of diversity of viewpoint in here, and we want to continue to encourage that as a global project that's just trying to help bring these ideas more into the mainstream and make it easier and more usual, so that it doesn't seem like, am I crazy because I have these experiences, which many of us on this call probably had that thought at some point in our life. We'd like to help a lot of people know that the answer to that is no, you're not crazy. This is quite common, and all kinds of interesting things are happening. And what we might do with it and how we might serve the earth and all living beings, how we might serve our fellow humans, is something we want to investigate going into the future. And I'm sure there will not be one solution adopted there either. There need to be as many solutions as possible, and then we lend our energy and support to the ones that harmonize or resonate most directly with ourselves, and we can converge together and co-create possibilities and plans. So we're just at the beginning of the journey. We thank you for being part of the journey and for being with us. It's lovely to see so many today. I think we've had 40 or more people on the call at any, over the course of the day. Some have come and gone, and we'll keep meeting for an hour and a half on the third Saturday of every month. And now we've also launched our speaker series. We had a wonderful talk earlier in the week by Chris Mackey and Lisa Buxbaum. Chris is on the call. Thanks for calling in the wee hours of the morning from Australia, Chris.
Good, Juliet. Good to be here. Great conversation. Sad I only got the last part of it, but that was great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And then we'll have Bernard Beitman for the next speaker series talking more about the definitions and types of meaningful coincidences and how to cultivate more of them, which is definitely items that came up today in our conversation. So if you need to go, thank you. We appreciate you being with us, and we'll see you at the next event where you're with us. And for those that want to stay on for a little while, we'll stay on for a bit longer. So I will turn it to Denise and then Sarah to add their comments.
Hi, I just wanted to thank Juliet for doing such a wonderful job, and to, I guess, reemphasize the point that we don't consciously create coincidences. I don't believe. I believe it's a conversation between us and the universe. Maybe it's just our higher self, but being too conscious of trying to create it will inhibit that conversation. That's all. Have a good week, everybody, or 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Thank you, Denise. Sarah, did you want to add something too?
Yes, I did. When, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the lady's name, her initials are AA. When she said that she'd drawn an I Ching card this morning, and it was number 8, Adele, thank you. Number 8, union, and what did you say?
And also number 13, fellowship in the open, friends in the open.
Well, the reason that I got so excited when you said about number 8 and union, I had explained about living in this house and a vivid dream that I'd had. And the reason that I live in this house was because I was working in a pub nearby called The Book and Union. And we were in chat room 8 this afternoon with Bernie, and uncanny coincidence, talking about all of those uncanny coincidences.
Oh, that
So
adds another level of like an echo of it.
it does. And if I could just add one more thing, in that, within that map of Darth Vader's helmet, my family lived, and we are Fevens, and later worked for another family who'd actually set up a business while they lived in that part of the map, and their surname was Fife, and Feven and Fife is like 7 and 5. And uncanny coincidence was talking about someone called Quinn, and my dad's just had his 75th birthday, and his name's John, and it was John that spoke before me today. It's like all of it is magic.
You are operating in a cloud of synchronicities. They're like particles in the air around you.
And I work for a company called Cloud Student Homes.
There you go.
I couldn't make it up.
Now, who else might want to add something? Maybe someone we haven't gotten to hear from yet today. We have a few more people still on the call. Just feel free to jump in. We've got 20 or so still here. Kirby, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I love this, setting, because when I have a question, I love that I could hear a lot of answers from a lot of people who sees the world the way, I do. And, it's fun, but personally, I think we need to push it a little more, to push the boundaries, to see how far we could go, and to see if we could do stuff that we didn't think we could do. Maybe we could use this to cure, cancer or stop a war. But I'm just saying is that I think we need to take a little risk and chance to push it a little more, to see maybe in a group setting we could do more than we think. And I feel that we can. I mean, like, just my opinion.
And so I agree with you, Kirby. It's picking what we need to do is the key.
Yeah, we may have new event types open up. We may want to start creating some intention holding groups that want to come together and do some work of bringing ourselves into presence around a particular topic or goal, and see how we can help to make a difference in positive ways. We certainly hope that the Coincidence Project can help us to address some of the urgent, critical issues that are facing life on Earth as we know it. And that is part of the hope that Bernie and I both hold in our hearts, helping to launch this project, is that we can use it in the service of life as we know it on the Earth.
I think it's important to keep in mind intention has something to do with making coincidences happen. And for some people, I mean, one of the things that's so important is to recognize that we each have different ways of doing this, that my way is not your way. And but there will be overlaps, and find the overlaps and recognize the differences is all part of the game of polarity here on this earth.
Bernie,
one thing sorry.
Bernie, I have a question, and it's something that I find incredible, that I'm changing how I see the world, because I think our concept of time and space is a little different. So, and it's kind of weird. So I'm trying to get used to it now, because I think for a long time I seen all this, but now that I'm trying to change my mindset of time and space, and I think it's hard right now because we have to see the world in a different way. And I think once you start to see it, I mean, we could help, Look at the air. Look at the air. If you're a caveman, you breathe in the air, right? Because you have to breathe, right? Okay, cool. Years of, evolution, guess what? If you're in a hospital and you cannot breathe, we have to put you on what?
One of your
Oxygen.
ventilators. Oh yeah.
Right. Oxygen. Okay. So years later, we are going to find out that there's something in the air and we are going to use it to heal. And what I'm trying to say is, because now that we understand about, sign and, the synchronicity, maybe there is more, to it, that we need to go and push how the boundaries, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we got to push, but we got to know where we're standing too. And that's what I'm trying to be able to help us get feet on the ground with a very elusive concept, the synchronicity coincidence thing. So what do we have here and how can we organize it is right where I'm trying to go. And I love that you're trying to get ahead of us. And that's, we need visionaries like you say, hey, got my heart, we got to do more. Okay, I'm with you on that one. Brooke, you had something to say.
Oh, yeah, well, just related to this topic and something somebody said earlier, just I think that we, I think people, there's, this awakenings happening and people tend to be, I think, somewhat more in an awakening state when they start to see synchronicities. I think there's some connection to this awakening and higher vibrations and stuff. And so the more, we're a small group, but there's all these groups, I'm in other groups, there's all these groups everywhere happening right now, right? So everybody's just playing this small part of helping other people raise their vibrations, be more aware, awakening, which brings all of us more, when there's more people at that higher vibration, going back to the comment somebody made earlier about democracy, about the farmers and the weather and the whole thing, is just like, the more people, we're just going to tip things. It's just going to tip eventually, right? And it might take 5, 10 years, 20, whatever, but it's kind of happening now, and there's going to be that tipping. So we're just, our little group has a little impact that waves out to other people, but there's all these groups happening out there, and it's eventually going to tip. That's kind of my perspective.
Thanks. I think I'm going to turn the recording off now.